Did you know that retirement is not biblical? I mean, seriously, all of us heard in the secular world that we are to save and tithe and then save 10%. And then, one day you can retire and have all this great wealth with compound interest and stuff. Now, look, I used to teach financial classes. I am not in any way telling you not to save. But the idea of retirement has gotten a little bit distorted these days because so many of us picture this magical time in our lives where we will have saved and stored up and then stop, and then you have all these things that you can go and do and start living life. Well, Jesus clearly in the Bible says, okay, so I look at the parable of the rich fool as he says, and this is in Luke 12, starting with verse 16. He said, then he told them a parable. There was a rich man whose land produced a bountiful harvest. He asked himself, what shall I do? For I do not have space to store my harvest. And he said, this is what I shall do. I shall tear down my barns and build larger ones, and there I shall store all my grain and other goods. And I shall say to myself, now, as for you, you have so many good things stored up for many years. Rest, eat, drink, and be merry. But God said to him, you fool, for this very night your life will be demanded of you. And the things you have prepared, to whom will they belong? Thus it will be for the one who stores up treasures for himself, but is not rich in that which matters to God. I love talking about this because it has always got me thinking. Nowhere in the Bible did we ever see Abraham or Moses or Jacob or any of the church fathers ever stop working until their bodies couldn't work. They were always, from the book of Genesis, a man's responsibility is to tend the field, to work by the sweat of his brow. Even in the New Testament, Luke and Paul and talk about, we're going to do our share. We're not just going to come to this community, preach the gospel and mooch off you guys. We're going to do our work. So again, I don't want to sit here and say, don't save. Everybody needs to save. You need to save for a rainy day. But this idea of this moment of abundance, I think it's anathema to God because it almost takes our focus off of that which God says we should really be storing up. Is what are you going to do when you die? That's what you store up for. That's where you put aside for. Are you putting aside good works? Look, I don't want to hear from any of you Protestants who say that Catholics say that you can only get to heaven by works. We get by faith, by faith through grace. That's it. But it also says in the Bible that you're not going to prove your love or faith if you don't have the works. So are you storing up all your works so that when you do get to heaven and after you've told the Lord, I love you, I've done my best, I'm so sorry for all my sins, and then be able to say, I did my best. I tried to, work when this person needed it, or when this person needed that, or I saw a need here. It just always worked for your kingdom. And even when you're old and your body doesn't work, some people can continue to work by writing letters or praying or donating time to the church. And that sometimes might just be praying for an hour at adoration when someone else can't. We aren't here to rest and have these vacations and travel and live a life of luxury and rest. Of course, God does not mind at all. Don't ever say Christine Bacon said that God doesn't want us to enjoy our life. He said, I came that you might have life and have it abundantly. But in seasons, you live, you travel, but are you gifting to others? Are you sharing? Are you sowing seeds? Are you sharing the gospel? If you're taking your trip on a yacht, Are you inviting others with you who maybe couldn't afford to be on that yacht? And then sharing Christ, using it for a mission trip? Don't consider your retirement. Don't even worry about it. Just save. Save as best as you can. Save for the rainy days. But continue to work until you can work no more. I, for one, hope I can work until the day I die. I enjoy working. I've always enjoyed working, from when I was a salad girl at a restaurant to scooper at Baskin Robbins, a produce girl at whatever the grocery store was called in Milwaukee. Is when I worked at the Fleet and Family Support Center serving our nation's military. I've loved all my jobs. It's because it's in your mind that I love serving. Yeah, there's some bad environments out there. So I hope this gives you food for thought. Contemplating, what are you planning to retire to? Are you only thinking about your retirement here on this earth? Or your retirement when you die? That's when you can really rest, assuming you're going that way and not that way. You'll never rest if you go there. You will always rest once you go to heaven. And all your works, all the good things you did for the kingdom will all be remembered. And the Lord will say, thank you for storing up these kind of treasures. Every single piece of sweat from your brow has been converted to a jewel, to a street of gold, to something in hopefully your mansion. They'll all be converted. So keep on working until your final retirement. Only then can you say, now I can eat and drink and be merry, because you're doing it in the presence of the Lord. Hope this helped. Food for thought. And speaking of food for thought, I'm Bacon, Dr. Christine Bacon. And I still always want to remind you to live your life sunny side up.